And we're back. It is Wednesday, February 4th, and the last time I checked in was before the race on Saturday. So now we're here. I took a couple days to get my bearings straight, just let my body recover, just some light movement, and I'm feeling pretty good. It's crazy how fast my body has bounced back from another 100-mile. Everything but my hamstring, and that's okay. I basically have told myself I got one more get out of jail free card, and I think I used it. So now I'm taking some time off running. Sad face, but it's okay. I did what I needed to, or what I wanted to. I survived, I got through it, and lived to run another day. So right now what my journey is biking, but we'll get more into that through the week and the weeks ahead. First off, I wanted to just give a quick recap of how the race went. Long story short, I won. That was really cool. Wasn't really sure how the result would turn out, but thankfully I did take the dub, and it felt good. So really, it started at 6:30 on Saturday. It was actually pretty good weather. I was just wearing a long sleeve, my Pepper Pants tights. Got to mingle a little bit at the start. Bunch of people. Barely got to use the bathroom in time. I think I took a super shit 2 minutes before the start. Ran over the start line, said bye to my crew, which of all the people that were there, it was me and Brian Scipione. He was running the 50 mile, I was running the 100 miler, and then Tommy Sharp. We had Kanan Gardner, Jared Ewing, and Brad Trexler. They were all there supporting me. It's freaking awesome. So I saying bye to them. Sean, the race director, he made a little joke in the beginning. He gave a little spiel saying, just remember, this is a flat course. You should take walking breaks. You cannot run this whole thing. And then he said, unless your name's Alec Klein. And that was hilarious. I did not expect him to say that. And I turned back and I was like, let's go. It did really make me happy to start. Just that random harassment. I loved it. So I went over the start line. I got a lot of jokes from the runners around me, and they're like, what pace you going? And I said, whatever pace you're going, and got a lot of fun out of it. So we started. I hung out with the guys for a bit in the beginning. Really the first maybe 20 miles. So how it went, we got into the trails. Actually, a lot of the bridges to start were very wonky, really wobbly, and we had to kind of walk some of them because they were broken boards. But we got through that, and I hung out with 2 or 3 guys, one of them being Eric Langdon. He was eventually the 50-mile winner, cruising, doing a really good job. I think he ran a 7:24. Hung out with him for a while, but I think he broke back a little bit behind me around mile 10. And then I was with a guy named Henry. I forget his last name. Henry is another Ohio guy. That was really cool to find that out. I did see him on the entrance list beforehand. I'm like, sweet, got another Ohio guy. He ended up taking second, which is awesome. So we had 2 Ohio guys leading. And then I was with another guy named Steven, and he was also from Ohio. He actually ended up being first and second with me for a long time, up until about the 29-mile mark. Well, actually, around the 25-mile mark when we hit one of the aid stations. And then he stayed at that one for a little bit, and I moved on. And when I got to 29, which was the first crew spot, I met my crew, got my stuff, in and out of there probably like 30, 45 seconds. And on the way back out, I saw Steven coming in. So he might only have been maybe 2 or 3 minutes behind me. And from that point on, I never saw anyone ever again. So it sounds crazier when I say it that way, but that's how it went. I guess in technical, the only time I had saw someone was on a long out and back. So I'll get to that. But at 29, I headed out and I was alone, just out in the woods. Nice sunny day, probably in the mid 50s. Nice and good weather for me, a little cold for the Floridans. But I got out there and I just, I'm just cruising. My goal of the day was really to finish because I didn't know how my hamstring would hold up, but also I wanted to learn to scale myself back because I run pretty hard for a while in 100, and I think I'm just a little out of control. So I was like, I want to stick to 145 heart rate. That's my goal. And that was the right choice because 145 felt so easy. I mean, I was just flowing. I mean, the flow state was real. Even around, I think mile like 35, I plugged in the great Mac Miller, his Circles album. I jive with that album so well. So I put that in and just felt like a trance. I was just flowing through the trails. It was going so well. Knocked out to 40. Then my coworker Lou called me, talked to him for a little while. I hit this one part called the Devil's Swamp, which I had heard about beforehand, and I saw a sign, but I didn't see anything. And then 8 miles later, I hit this thing while I'm on the phone, and my whole shoe gets sucked off, and then my foot with just my sock goes a foot into the mud, pull my foot out, find my shoe, take maybe 20 more steps, lose my other shoe. So that was hilarious. Actually, it was a very fun moment. And I was like, Lou, I gotta go. I gotta figure this out. And that was probably a good like 10th mile stretch of just crazy deep, like Play-Doh-like mud. It wasn't really that wet. It was just, I don't really know how to explain it. It's because it didn't really like get any rocks on me or anything. My feet weren't wet. It was just mud. I don't know how to put it. But I got through that and I got back into flow state, just cruising the mid 140s. I checked out on my watch, say, all right, I need to just keep it in a calm state. And that mid 140s really kept me 8:30 pace. I mean, I think I was 8:34 pace for, I don't know, 50 miles at least. I know my 50-mile split was under 8 hours, which was spectacular. You know, I had some pretty lofty goals for the race when around November, you know, but then when my hamstring started acting up, I just had to take what I could get. So, you know, sub 15 was definitely a treat. So I get to 50 and actually I get to 52 and this was a fun, 50 was a fun moment because I actually had to take a shuttle ride. I ran up to this van and I get up to him, no one behind me, and he's like, anybody near you? And he didn't speak very good English. I was like, oh no, nobody's close to me. He's like, all right. And he takes his sweet old time and he gets the stool out for me and I get in and then he smooths out the floor mat so I don't get mud. It was just, you notice these little details when, I don't know, you're racing. So I get in the van and he puts it all back together, drives up to Route 50, because there was a reason we had to use the shuttles because we had to cross the highway. So we drive across Route 50 and it's like a mile through these neighborhoods in the shuttle and I'm just sitting there. You know, we're going like 20 miles an hour, just sitting there. And I'm like, wow, this is a very interesting thing in a race. I had never experienced something like that. And it was fun. Like, just the uniqueness made it really cool. So I get off the shuttle and then I got a mile and a half until I saw my crew again. And the next biggest thing was I got to pick up Jared. So Jared was pacing me from 52 to 74. So I pick him up 52. And at this point, you know, my hamstring wasn't really feeling great. You know, I was already afraid to sit down in the shuttle, which is not a good sign, right? And so I run to get him, take my long sleeve shirt off I took my singlet off because earlier in the day I actually took my long sleeve shirt off at mile 29. I took my singlet off and I put a long sleeve on because it was starting to get cold. It was probably like 40 at this point. So I put that on, picked him up, got all my other gels, and we took off. And I only saw Jared and Brad at this point. Yeah, Jared and Brad, because Tommy and Kanan were helping Brian. I think that's how it was split up. I know Jared was there. So I pick up Jared, we go run. And actually right before that, I saw an armadillo. So that was really cool. And I forgot to mention that. One of the most unique, you know, animals I've probably, or whatever you want to call them, on a run that I've seen. Never seen an armadillo. So it kind of looks like a possum with a shell. But I get out of there, we run a mile and a half, get back into the trails. And him and I are just jiving. We're running well. I think I was kind of like 8s to 9s at this point. But I could tell my hamstring was getting worse. And around 57 or something, we met up with crew again. And no, it's 59. So we met up with crew again, and I was like, hey, do you have any ace bandage? Actually, I knew I had ace bandage, but it was like that skinny kind. So I run into the trunk and I get my ace bandage out and I start wrapping my leg. And there's only enough for like 3 wraps. I'm like, ugh. So I wrap it, and it's super freaking windy. So I was like, we got to get back into the trail. We'll get back into the trail. And the wrapping actually completely took the pressure away from my hamstring, because it was like small and pinpointed. However, it then was constricting the sides of my legs and the top of my whole quad, right? My whole thigh. If I had something like a splint or a pad to put on my hamstring to put the pressure only there, that would have been better, but I didn't. So then I call Brad, and I was like, hey, do you have any ace bandage? Can you run to the store before we get to you? And it was kind of like hard with timing, especially because like the first 2 miles I tried to call him, there was no service. And eventually got a hold of him, and he's like, all right, I'll ask the director. So he gets with Sean, and Sean does have some ace bandage, the wide stuff. So I get there, and I start wrapping my leg, and Sean's like, what the heck are you doing? And I said, or he's like, you all right? And I said, I'm great, race director. And it was cool. He was taking a little video of me, asking me about the course while I'm wrapping my leg. And then I had to wrap it with duct tape, even more ghetto. And I just had to do what I could to get some pressure on it. So I did that, and I'm thinking, dude, I am 62 miles in, and I'm wrapping my fucking leg. Like, what am I doing? And I think my mood was going down, just because, I didn't think I was going to be able to finish, and that sucks. I thought, this is just where it's going to have to be. So we get out onto the trails, and then we finally pop out onto a service road, and we're heading towards 67, which was the next crew spot. And around 65 to 66, I look at Jared and I say, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to drop out right at 67. And, he understood, and he talked to me through it, and wondered if it's really what I wanted to do. And I was like, I don't want to, but that's just where it's looking right now. So I get to 67, and I get to the crew, which was Brad and Kanan, because Tommy was still helping Brian. And they didn't really know, and I started taking stuff off, and Kanan's like, all right, here's your bottle, blah 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 blah. And I was like, Kanan, I'm done. And I was like, and he, he's like getting on me, and I was like, it's not that I don't have the energy. And in fact, to this point, I felt amazing. Like, I know they probably heard me say it enough, but like, I really did feel good. That's what sucked, is I'm just like, dude, I could run so well right now. And he wasn't taking any of it. He's like, I didn't drive all the way from North Carolina to just watch you quit. And it was funny. And I was mad, and I even turned around, I kind of like looked into the gods, and I'm just like, what am I gonna do? And he convinced me, and so I took my ketone shot, caffeine, took 2 gels, stuffed my bag again, and I just start running with Jared. So we do this 2.5 out, 2.5 back, and that was when I left off Jared. So that was a great time with him. He ran a good bit of miles with me, 20 miles I think total. And then I picked up Kanan. Now, they knew I was in a rough spot, so they called Tommy, and they're like, you got to get your ass over here, because Tommy's my secret weapon. He knows he can he's not gonna let me quit. It's just, he's not. So I heard the megaphone when I was getting close to that point, and I'm like, this motherfucker, and so I get there, and I am in better spirits at this point. They gave me some warm gear. I get a thermal under my long sleeve, get gloves and a head wrap on. I still have my tights on. They're like, you put some sweatpants on. I was like, listen, I am hot right now. I mean, it was like 30s, but we're running in 0-degree weather here in Ohio, and that was nice. So I pick up Canaan, and then we have this brutal section. And it's not brutal because of the course or anything. Like, it's all flat, but it's a 6 mile out, 6 mile back. And the way it works is it was 4 miles straight, perfectly straight, is what it seemed, in between all these trees. And then you take a left for 2 miles in this completely exposed dirt road, no trees around you. Like, it just followed power lines, and that was Laser Street. I know that. So that sounds all fine and dandy, but this was at night already, and the wind, I don't even know if this is an over-exaggeration. It was like 30 miles an hour, and it was right in our face. And I feel like we're just running and leaning into it, and he keeps telling me to draft him, and I'm like, dude, you're too freaking skinny. And it was hilarious. So I'm just like, dude, I gotta get next to you running, because this is killing me being behind you. So I get next to him when we finished out that 2 miles, and Sean, he had been bouncing back and forth through the whole course, seeing me, and just asked me how it's marked and whatever. And so he saw me here, and him and Deanna was on the phone, his old race director, co-director, and they were harassing me, and that was cool. We got to the end, and we turned back, and it was awesome, because on the way back, it was all tailwind. It was pushing us. Like, I could feel it like lifting me up. And so that helped us gain some time back, but I really had to slow my pace down, after that 67, because I was just afraid to stride out. Like, I just felt like if my stride was too long, like I was going to irritate my hamstring, and it was such a battle, and I could feel myself limping. They swear they couldn't see me limping. I just felt like I was. Anyway, we get that 6 mile out, 6 mile back section done. But before that, on the way back, it was a good gauge for us to find out how far ahead I was. And let's say hit 6, coming back, we hit 7, 8, 9, 10. If 10, that means if we haven't seen somebody, we're 8 miles ahead, because 4 and 4. Hit 11, still haven't seen another person. Get it about 5 and a half, and we saw somebody. And so that told us I was 11 miles ahead, which was incredible. I did not know I had that kind of lead. I didn't really get much feedback through the day, which is fine, because I'm just going to run my own race. But we were pretty far ahead, and not too long after, only a half mile, was third. So they were battling it out. Later would find out that was Henry and Brian Beal. I don't know why Henry Shulcom. Yeah, I think is his last name. So them two were together, and so I'm like, all right, I got some time, but I don't want to let up. So we get to that 84 mile aid station, and they got some ramen for me and stuff, and I sip on it, and I take 2 more gels, and I was slamming gels all day. Like, I was doing good with fueling. So I took everything I needed there. I took my last caffeine, total of 700 milligrams through the day. I was fine with that. I said I didn't want any more than 600 on top of the 100 I took actually at the very start, which I don't normally do. So I got there, and I'm like, all right, 15 more damn miles. So Kanan and I were still together. We run down the service road. We cut into the trail, and the trails were tough. I slowed down. I was so nervous I was going to trip and catch myself and tear my hamstring. Like, it's one thing saying it and for you to hear me say that, but to have that in your head is so freaking scary. And when I left at 67, when they convinced me to go out, I told Kanan, if I tear my hamstring, this is on you, and I'm going to be out for a whole fucking year. And I had that in my head, like, I have to be careful. But at the same time, it's like, why would I run this far already if I'm not going to finish the fucking thing, So I was like, Kanan, we got to slow down. We slowed down to like an 11-minute pace, eventually like 12s, and I still was kicking the hell out of roots. And honestly, when I run slower, I kick more things, because you're not striding efficiently. So hitting stuff, and get to the 10 to go aid station, so a little crew spot, got to see them there. And then the 7 to go aid station, got my gels. The last time I had to go shit in the woods. It's always terrible. And so I get there, get all my stuff, and I'm like, all right, 7 more miles. This is gonna suck. And we get into the trails, and I can tell you one thing. That was the longest fucking 7 miles of my life. I shouldn't do this because I've trained myself this way. I don't look at my watch, like, you know, religiously, but I just kept looking down, and it was like 6.8 to go, 6.75 to go. And I'm like, dude, I just want to be done. Like, I just wanted to cry, not because of pain, nothing. I just want to be done, man. I'm so sick of running. And oh my God, every single mile was just so visible. And to make matters worse, I wanted to play some music on my headphones, and I was trying to tell my, you know who you call iPhone. I'm not going to say it right now because it'll stop my damn video, but SIRI. I kept saying, play this album. Play Wish You Were Here album by Pink Floyd. And when it go, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, and it would say, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble connecting. And I would go, shut up. I was so mad. And I couldn't get it to play. And I think in hindsight, if I would just take my phone out and started my downloaded album on Spotify, it would have been fine because I was trying to have it play it. But I couldn't play music, and we finally get to the last road. We finally pop out of the trail, and I knew we had 1.5 miles left. And Kanan was on the phone with his wife, Alyssa, and I asked it one more time. I was like, play Wish You Were Here album by Pink Floyd. And it played. And you know what a grand finale to a race. It lightened my mood so much, and I was like, all right, we just got to run this thing out. And just listen to Shine On You Crazy Diamond, just such a spiritual trance-like song to just make me feel so damn good after all those miles. It was great. So and of course, Kanan, you know, I'm not like discrediting him. Like, Kanan and I really bonded a lot over that pace. He's never paced me before. Well, actually, he ran a whole marathon with me on the trails one time. I might have been a bandit on the trails, but this is a real pacing gig he's done. And we had a lot of fun, especially because we don't see each other too often. We started ultras together back in 2020. Really special to me, and it was cool to come full circle. And he even talked about, remember how we used to see the people winning, and we're like, man, what's it like to feel like that? And him bringing up those emotions, those thoughts was so cool. Like, yeah, you're right. What was that like? And now we're here, you know? So being with him and finishing it with listening to Pink Floyd, just a great end of the day. And got to the finish line, and the whole team was there. Brian had already finished his 50 miler, so he was there and showered and feeling better. And I got to the end, and it was just awesome. You know, so much relief. Couldn't believe I took the win just with the adversity with my leg that I was facing. But I did it, and I don't have a DNF, so that's a good thing, right? And when I finished, Brian's like, I got a McDouble in the car for you. And I'm like, yeah, you know, and that was the greatest freaking McDouble. But I got pictures with everyone, got pictures with the directors, really talked to them how much I love their course, and did all the things. And long story short, too, I won by, I think, like 1 hour and 42 minutes. It was a good lead. And second and third, they battled it out. They were within a minute of each other. So that was really cool. But took a big win, missed the course record by probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And on that, you know, so I ran a 16:08. I slowed down a lot, and that's an incredible 100-mile time. Like, I'm super happy with it. But my cardio fitness, my body fitness, everything excluding my hamstring was fantastic. And that's a good thing because it shows that my cross training worked, and that cross training does work. You know, I think nothing trumps running, but if you have to cross train, it has its benefits. So in reality, you know, and this isn't me saying anything which way, but I do think I could have ran around 14 hours that day. Just with how good I was feeling, the weather was perfect, there was barely any mud. But that's not the way the cards turned, and I'm still very grateful. I took the second best time for the course, and my average heart rate ended up being 138. I mean, low. I think that my heart rate could have been high 140s and sustained the whole time. I ended up taking 110 grams an hour. I did only like 460 milligrams of sodium an hour. I planned a lot more, but then I skipped some drinks because I just think my stomach's getting irritated, which that's something to learn from, because it wasn't that hot. I wasn't sweating a ton. I wasn't putting out a ton of intensity. So I did skip some. I did all my math after, everything I brought and everything I was left over with. It took 700 milligrams of caffeine. I didn't calculate the water. That's just going to be too hard to figure out. But I drank a ton. So yeah, carbs 110, sodium I think was 460, caffeine 700. Oh, and ketones. I took 25 grams of ketones throughout. So I took 3 of the shot ketones. One of each. They each have 100 milligrams caffeine as well, but 5 grams of ketones. So 5, 5, and 5. And I took a big swig of 10 full grams out of the big jugs. Does it work? I think so. Is there a lot of back and forth evidence? Yeah, but I use it still, so I think that worked out pretty well. My gel of choice was Carbs Fuel and the Cis Beta gels, and I really like the Cis Beta gels. I've used them before, but I can tell you what, towards the end, I wasn't digging like taking those. I don't know why. I would slam it and I'm just like, ugh. But then I would follow it up with a Carbs Fuel, the normal white gel, and I just love the flavor. It's so weird. Some people really don't like it, some people do, and it always came back great to me. And that's what I train with so much, so maybe it's just a comfort item, but I don't know. It genuinely made me feel better. It tastes like maple syrup to me. So that was a good thing. They have 50 grams of carbs. So and a lot of the aid stations, my plan, and I had it written down and I actually followed it, was I'd slam 2 full gels. So either 90 or 100 grams total at once, and I'd always feel better. So yeah, that's my Forgotten Florida 100 recap. It was 100 miles. It was my 17th 100 miler. That's fucking crazy to even say. I can't believe I've done this many. And I'm always looking forward to do what I can do next. And it was so exciting. It's my first time in Florida. Very, very happy. Just a great day. So always enjoy what you do and it'll never feel like work. And it didn't feel like work, maybe in the last 7 miles, but it didn't feel like work. I am happy running. I can't change that. Running makes me happy, and that's why I always got to find ways to get back into running, because it's not even a sanity thing. It makes me happy, and when you find something like that, you'll know, and it doesn't have to be running, but it's out there for you, and this is for me. So, and actually, I just had a guy at the gym. This is a point to the story. He's like, "Did you go to Florida yet?" And I was like, "Yeah," and he's like, "How long were you down there?" And I was like, "Only like 2.5 days." You didn't experience Florida. I was like, "Well, I ran 100 miles. He's like, "Oh, you did?" And he's a runner. And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, how'd it go?" And I was like, "Well, I won." And he's like, "Well, what'd you get out of it?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, what'd you win?" The happiness that I finished. And I was like, "Well, I got an award and a buckle." He's like, "Oh, well, that's good." And he's like, "You didn't win any money?" And I was like, "No, you don't usually win money in these things." He's like, "Why would you even do it?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I mean, because, and he was talking to me about pickleball, and he's like, "You can win a ton of money in pickleball." And he's like, "Maybe you should look at that." And I said, "No." I said, "Trust me, if I got into this for the money, then I'm an idiot." I said, "I won money maybe 2 or 3 times, but more often than not, I'm spending a bunch of money." And he's like, "Well, like," and then I told him, I said, "Well, here's a breaking cool news, is I got unofficially ranked 12th ultra runner of the year. So they showed the top 10 and then they showed the other ones below it, and I was 12th. So that's really cool. And I told him that. I said, here, I'll prove your point more. I said, I'm technically 12th ultra runner of the year. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I was like 12th, like in the whole North America. And he's like, of age groups? I said, no, like men overall. And he said, well, like of young people too? And I said, yes, of all men. And he's like, but you know, aren't like 5Ks more important? I said, no, like this is just for ultra running. And he said, oh, okay, well there's like nobody that does that. And I said, no, there's like a lot of people that do this, believe it or not. You just don't know it. And and he keeps fighting me on it. I'm like, okay. He's like, well, you know, 5Ks are like really the bigger deal. And I said, sure. Yeah, 5Ks are a big deal. And he's like, I don't know why you do it. And I said, I don't know why I would do it either. Yeah, so there's that. Anyway, I'm done rambling. I'm sitting in my driveway. I'm very happy to share this journey with you guys. That's Forgotten Florida 100. Happy running.